Well, good afternoon, everybody. And in opening the meeting today at 1 o'clock, and in the spirit of reconciliation, we, the citizens of Launceston, recognise that Launceston is situated on a country of which Tasmanian Aboriginal people have been the owners of for over 35,000 years, and on which they have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, illumination, and renewal. We acknowledge the Aboriginal community of today, their living culture, and the unique role in the life of this region, and how they offer, and we offer, our deep appreciation of their ongoing contribution to the community. And in recognition of NAIDOC Week 2023, I'm very pleased to welcome Auntie Sharon Holbrook today to deliver our Welcome to Country.
Don't have to stand on ceremony, it's all right. I don't know if you sit or not. Sorry. Hi, everyone. Happy NAIDOC Week. It doesn't start till Sunday, but plenty of places to go, and flag raising on Monday. And if you're not busy, you can come up for lunch to the elders on Tuesday. Another one won't hurt, you know. So that's where I'll be for the next week. So here we go. So happy NAIDOC Week, everybody. Yapalinga Molasina Pakana, welcome to Aboriginal land. I would like to pay my respects to our elders, past, present, and the future, for they are the keepers of our knowledge, our art, our dance, and most of all, our culture. I'd also like to pay my respect to the stolen generation and acknowledge the survival and strengths of all Aboriginal people, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, and all our ancestors, all who have gone before us, and welcome you all to this land, whose foundations are forever in the skies and the seas of Lutruwita. Our people have walked this land that you know as Tasmania for over 60,000 years. As you spend time together, may our elders past and present guide and support you, as together we have the knowledge, the experience and the strength to overcome any barriers and stand proud in our identity as Palawa people, the original people of Lutruwita. I stand here as a proud Palawa woman and an Aboriginal elder. Very, very proud. Nari Nini too. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you, Auntie Sharon. And with attendance and apologies, it's great to have the full table back. And we have no apologies or no mayoral acknowledgements of agenda item number 2. Agenda item number 3, declaration of interests. A councillor must declare any interest that a councillor has in a matter before any discussion of that matter commences. Do we have any declarations of interest today? That is no declarations. Agenda item number 4, confirmation of minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the City of Launceston Council held on the 15th of June 2023 be confirmed as true and correct record. Do I have somebody to move the recommendation? Councillor Britton to move. A seconder, Councillor Walker. Anything to speak to those? Councillor Walker. Any other speakers to the minutes? Putting that to a vote, all those in favour? That is all those councillors present. The motion is carried. Agenda item number 5, council workshops. 5.1, council workshop report. The recommendation is to approve and note that council workshops conducted since the last council meeting included the petition to amend the sealed plan, the Albert Hall project update, Tasmanian Community Fund, Launceston flood recovery exercise, the future of a local government review, Tamar Valley Community Catchment Information Pack, the budget 23-24, and a homelessness update. Somebody to move the recommendation. Councillor Walker? A seconder? Councillor Britton? Councillor Walker, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Britton? Any other speakers to the workshops? Putting it to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present? The motion is carried. Agenda item number 6, councillors' leave of absence applications. There are no councillors' leaves applications for today. So moving forward to agenda item number 7, we have no community reports that have been identified for today. Agenda item number 8, public question time, 8.1. Public questions on notice, 8.1.1. From Rosalie, you'll see stormwater runoff, Strawn Road, Newstead. 8.1.2, Jim Dickinson, Albert Hall renewal. 8.1.3, Ray Norman, housing crisis, city architect and public liability insurance. 8.1.4, from Ron Baines, city architect, tree removal and e-scooter safety. Moving on to 8.2, public questions without notice, noting that the rules of engagement are visible and available upon entry. You may ask a total of 3 questions. Do we have anybody here to speak for public questions without notice? Cool. If you just step up to the microphone and just your name and suburb, please.
My name's Paul Richardson of no fixed address, basically. I'm currently sleeping rough at the St Leonard's picnic ground. And I'm in a full-time care of my son, Zachary. My son, Zachary, received a phone call from the Launceston City Council yesterday at roughly 11 a.m. To the regards of this phone call was basically notice to vacate from the picnic ground on grounds of to do with my German Shepherds there. So the questions are basically, it's an on-leash area at the park. My dogs are on leash 24/7, tied to the back of my ute, where they run around my truck basically and my ute and my camper to make sure that nothing's been stolen while I'm trying to get some sleep at night time basically. So that's why they're there, to guard so a person can sleep at night time. So there's been accusations that my dogs have actually attacked and other issues apparently. So they're on lead 24/7 as I've already said. Dogs currently staying about space cleaned. Oh, and I've in the time that I've been there, I've had multiple people saying that I'm keeping the area clean, so there's not a mess and the site can be seen at any stage. So I'd like to see what proof that the City Council has that my dogs have attacked, the pictures or any vet bills or any human doctors, whatever my dogs have apparently been bitten people. And the main part of the end of the question is about the Launceston Kitty, how they're going to evict me, and so where am I going to move to if they're going to evict me from the premise? So, and the last word of that was that they were going to come and seize my dogs if I didn't remove myself from there. Sure.
Okay, Paul. Yeah, we'll take that question. General Manager Ryan, I believe that I'm not aware of the situation, but General Manager Ryan will be able to give us any insight.
Good afternoon, Paul, and thank you for the question and thanks for coming along.
No
I don't have full visibility over the circumstances you're talking about. I know that there has been some discussion within the team around your situation down at St Leonard's with the dogs.
Yes.
I would like, though, to be able to get some more information and come back to you directly, if that's okay, so I can make sure the information I provide you is accurate and up to
by
date.
all means.
But thank you for coming.
So we'll take that on notice.
Yes, please.
Did you have any subsequent questions?
No, just those 3, mate, basically, yeah.
We'll ensure that we get that response for you. Paul, thank you. Thank you for coming in, yeah. Mr. Dickinson?
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. Jim Dickinson, 261 West Hamer Road. Shape Australia was appointed quite a while ago to help with the design and the constructability of the Albert Hall. Just wondered what they have contributed in the last 6 or 7 months to that, to the design and construction problem that they were facing or asked to comment on.
General Manager Shane?
Well, as explained numerous times, they contributed to the detailed design of the final lot of drawings.
Yeah, what specific? I mean, that's a pretty wide answer. I mean, I'd like a fairly solid, specific answer. What
Okay.
specifically have they contributed?
I can't give you the detailed answer. I'm not part of the design team, so I wasn't there for their contribution.
Well, you should be
Mr.
aware of
Dickens.
what's going on.
Mr. Dickinson, have you received an answer to that in writing before?
No.
Okay, well, we'll look into that. We'll take that on notice and we'll give you that answer to the question that you're asking, as you want some information around what they've contributed. And if that answer is they've contributed the drawings, then that will be the response. But I will ensure that that is looked into.
Yeah, but the word I'm trying to make is specific. I want to know whether they changed brick to aluminium or a
Okay,
tin
we can
roof
look
to
into that. I have absolutely no problem looking into that.
something.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the second question is, I'm just wondering why there's no comment in the budget papers about the Albert Hall, and in particular in reference to councillor stated that they probably have to put in 4 or 5, maybe even 6 million. That doesn't appear anywhere in the budget papers.
So I can speak to that we as a council will be looking into. You will see it in the agenda today that there will be some more discussion around Albert Hall, and we don't have a decision on the direct movement forward for that at the moment, but there will be subsequent conversations around the Albert Hall and there will be more information provided, most likely after today.
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kirsten Ritchie from Strike It Out Inc. at 37 Birch Avenue, Newstead, Shed 25. Today we've just had another client who is sleeping rough, Paul Richardson and his son Zachary, who are in a predicament of being evicted due to accusations of other dogs off leash coming up to the German Shepherds, whom are territorial in the area and apparently attacked other dogs. Why is it that we still do not have safe spaces to keep our humans and pets together in a place where the basic amenities are also provided 24/7? Many times I've requested to Launceston City Council that we could provide safe green spaces, providing the basic amenities for those sleeping rough, but given the answer that they don't believe in locked areas due to emergency evacuation situations that could occur. So how many of you all lock your doors and windows overnight? Locks can come in forms such as keypad forms, swipe cards and other locks, a safe space for the vulnerable people to soundly sleep without members of the public coming to cause harm, and as such another incident occurring down at Royal Park yesterday afternoon. Safe green spaces which are managed by the services in our community that believe that safety comes first, as well as meeting the basic human rights and allowing our community members and pets a safe sleep and a place to not be abused and assaulted regularly. How do you, as a council moving forward, could accommodate such green spaces to be set up with the basic amenities providing for our community members who are currently not having the basic human rights met?
Thank you, Kirsten. I will continue to thank you for the work that you do in our community. And I will go and say that our officers and our Homelessness Advisory Committee are working really hard in this space. And we do understand that it is a really tough space, but I will commend the work that they are doing. And I know that you have been involved to speak and to take in what's been happening at those committees as well. What we can do as a council is to continue to facilitate, keep talking to the community in those spaces, those people on the ground like yourself, bringing those to our attention. And these are things that we as a council are constantly hearing and addressing to the best of our capabilities in an environment that is constantly changing as well. And I'm really disheartened to hear what's been happening to Paul, but that is something that, as advised, we will look into the finer details of that, and we will do the best that we can with what we have to provide to continue working in this space that is ever changing. So as a question, we are constantly, as an answer to the question, we are constantly working with those facilitators, working with the providers, the external providers, around what is the best way to continue to move forward and to look for opportunities around the safety, not only of our community, but the safety of our community as a whole. So I don't have we're continuing to work. We're continuing always. And the more things you bring to our attention, the more things that we're going to continue to work with and on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you to everybody for your questions. Moving on to agenda item number 9, mayoral announcements. Thursday the 15th, attended the Game of Tiaras by Launceston Youth Theatre Ensemble at the Earl Arts Centre, which was excellent. Friday the 16th, assisted with leading the walk against elder abuse, hosted a civic function to mark the Sacred Heart College 150th anniversary. On Saturday, officiated at the opening of the Australia in Space exhibition at the QV Mag, and just noting also the incredible attendance and the report that came through from General Manager Shane Fitzgerald about how well that has gone in this last quarter. It's really encouraging to see the biggest numbers that we've seen on the books. Monday the 19th, participated in the LGAT Tamar Valley Catchment Local Government Review Stage 3 assessment. I was there with Councillor Walker and Councillor Harris, speaking on behalf of Launceston. Attended the Circle of Silence film at Village Cinemas. This was my first experience with a demand film, and it was based around the 5 Australian journalists who were killed over in Timor, and it was really quite insightful and a really passionate presentation afterwards as well. On the Thursday, I just popped in to the Vinnie CEO Sleep Out at UTAS Stadium, and on the Friday, we officiated at the Rise exhibition launch at the Queen Victoria Museum and Art Gallery, which was also incredibly well attended. It was great to see how that is an exhibition right around the state up here. Wednesday the 21st, I've got a couple to add in. Malcolm Baywaters, I caught up with the doctor who graciously showed me around how the Inveresk UTAS campus is providing pop-up exhibition opportunities. On the Friday the 23rd, attended alongside 14 other mayors at the Future of Local Government Consolidation in Devonport at the Paranapple Theatre. Agenda item number 10, councillor reports. Do we have some councillor reports? Acting Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I was delighted to present to 77 grade 5 and 6 students at Glendrew yesterday about how voting works in Tasmania and what my role is as a councillor. And honestly, I spent an hour listening to the incredibly insightful questions that these students asked and thinking about how much that's changed since I was in grade 5 or 6. We even got onto what a Robson rotation was and how preferential voting is different between federal and state and local government. And they asked all of the right questions. So if anyone gets an opportunity to speak to a school and to listen to school students, it was the really most fantastic hour, and I can recommend it highly.
Further councillor reports? Councillor Mackenzie?
I just want to rise. I, for personal circumstances, didn't get to the Rise exhibition launch last week, but I did take the half an hour we had extra today to go and have a look at it. And I'd just say it's just wonderful, and a commendment to the staff of QV Mag and what they put on out there. And I can see why the visitation's going up. The quality of the exhibitions are fantastic. So if you haven't had a chance to go and have a look at it, please avail yourself of it.
Any further? Excellent. Agenda item number 11, councillors' questions on notice. You will see 11.1.1 from Councillor Harris around short-term personal mobility device hire. Moving forward to 11.2, councillors' questions without notice. Any councillor questions without notice? Excellent. Moving forward. Agenda item number 12, notices of motion. 12.1, notice of motion, Councillor McMahon, in the reinstatement of the state government's financial contribution to the active Launceston program. The recommendation is that council requests the Chief Executive Officer write to the Premier and request the reinstatement of the state government's financial contribution to the active Launceston program. Do I have someone to move? Councillor McMahon, a seconder? Councillor Dawkins, Acting Deputy Mayor. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I've been a mental health advocate in our community for quite some time, and one of my focuses, if I was elected, was to find ways to improve our community's mental health. In a recent workshop, we heard lots of statistics around the health and wellbeing within our community. Numbers do not always show the real impact or translate to real people. Accompanying today's motion is a picture of 85 pairs of shoes lining the steps of Town Hall. The number of Tasmanians lost to suicide in 2016. On average, we lose 72 Tasmanians each year to suicide. They are not just numbers, they are real people. A pair of those shoes represent my husband, who we lost to suicide on the 18th of June 2014, and just under 2 years ago, I also lost one of my best friends. The reason I'm talking about this today is because I'm seeking your support for a motion that requests our Chief Executive Officer writes to the state government requesting the reinstatement of a financial contribution to our Active Launceston program so that it can be held all year round. The City of Launceston currently funds a summer program after both the University of Tasmania and state government pulled their funding in recent history. The council contributed $75,000, $49,000 from 2018 to the program on an annual basis, and previously both the Tasmanian government $75,000 and the University of Tasmania $75,000 provided financial support to the program annually. However, in 2016, the Tasmanian government made a decision to cease its funding of the program. Active Launceston is a success story, a model born here in Launceston and a program we should be proud of. Since 2008, they have delivered 246 community programs, engaged 13,644 attendees, attending 37,716 sessions, amounting to 45,148.5 hours of physical activity as of December 2022. We are seeing it implemented across many municipalities because of its continuing success. All year round programs foster changing habits and continuity establishes consistency, improving physical, social and mental health. We need to further embed these programs into our community, and research has shown the social connections are even more beneficial than the physical aspect. Research also shows an increase in declining mental health during the winter months, a time of the year that makes these programs even more critical within our community. With the increased stress of the cost of living pressures, it is even more crucial to be able to offer these programs for free to our community. The City of Launceston, as we know, does many great things to support our community's health and wellbeing, and programs like Active Launceston deserve our support. But it also deserves further support from our state government. Our community deserves their support. Our state government's Healthy Tasmania 5-year strategic plan's priority is to bring together communities, services and all levels of government to work in partnership for improved health and wellbeing, and with a renewed focus on mental health. Our Premier states all Tasmanians should have the opportunity to live their best lives for as long as possible in our communities that support connections to people, place and culture. Active Launceston fulfills so many aspects and expectations of the Healthy Tasmania 5-year strategic plan, and we need to take effective action in preventative health to keep people healthy and well. I hope I can count on your support for this motion for our community's mental, social and physical wellbeing. Thank you.
Acting Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor McMahon for bringing this motion. I think the very least that we can do is continue to apply pressure to ensure that the funding continues for Active Launceston. So I was in State Parliament in 2016 when that funding was removed. There were a number of line items removed in that budget that honestly we thought they were a mistake, because it was such a small amount of money for the overall budget and it had such a big effect in our communities when these kinds of projects were defunded. So I asked a number of questions in State Parliament and attempted to understand why. And I still don't to this day really understand why that was defunded. I think perhaps what the government of the day was looking at was installing their own overarching framework that they could then name up as one of their successes, rather than integrate existing projects that were already ticking the boxes, especially when it came to preventative health. We've never done a really good job of being able to quantify the success of preventative health measures, because you're looking for an absence of something, right? You're looking for less people seeking mental health support. You're looking for less people seeking physical health support. And those are very long-term trends. So we've got an ageing population, a demography that's already quite difficult to quantify because as the population ages, people live longer, there are going to be more health requirements. And it's very, very hard to distill that into something as simple as a budget. And I suspect that that's part of the reason why this was defunded, because I don't understand why, if that's not the reason why it would have been. So Active Launceston is a very, very important part of our preventive health strategy. It's run by an incredible organisation. And not only are the participants at risk, but also the people who put themselves forward to instruct for Active Launceston, because they're getting paid very little money, or they're volunteers. They're taking a lot of time out of their life to be helpful, supportive members of the community. But without that certainty that they're going to be able to continue to do this, this is a real labour of love. So I think it's really important that we continue to highlight these kinds of programs and how council can apply pressure to other levels of government to be able to say, this is such a little thing that makes such a big difference in our community. Please find it in your budget to be able to continue to sustain this organisation.
Taking it to the table, starting with Councillor Mackenzie.
Thanks. And Councillor McMahon, thank you for bringing the motion to the table. I mean, I've been very connected with Active Launceston for a long, long time, and the people who run it, because they've done it in other places. They did Active Georgetown a couple of years ago, where my foundation supported that, and significant results came out of that, which we've now led to Healthy Shed in Georgetown. They've done activities up in Ravenswood and some of our lower socioeconomic areas. The reality is people will say, go and join a gym, go and join a footy club, go and do those sorts of things. It's not for everybody. And not everybody can afford to be a member of a gym. I think what Active Launceston brought in a number of years ago that we did, I think we celebrated 10 years of it about 2 years ago, so probably been going for a dozen years or more, was the ability for anybody just to turn up at the park, a pair of sand shoes or not even a pair of sand shoes, and just do something which didn't need to be highly active, but it got them motivated. And I've listened to my erstwhile colleague, Dr. Raze, across the table talk about mental health and the healthy activities that are required to keep our society better. I think we're becoming a more obese society. There are lots of issues out there with fast food and so forth like that that sort of are creating a lot of other issues, and the mental health aspects of it are well known that activity and mental health go together. Less of it is likely to give you a worse outcome from a mental health situation. So I strongly support the motion that's been put forward today. All it's doing is us using our leverage and using our skills to try and negotiate something we're already funding ourselves, and just ensuring that we can make this a year-round program rather than something that stops and starts. Because I know from personal experience, if I stop something, it takes me a while to get started again. So it's a really good idea to have continuity within the community and have accessible places. We've got lovely parks. This time of year, it's probably not so great, but there are sort of hard form areas where people can go and still exercise and do things. And there's so many creative things that lovely people at Healthy Business do to actually engage and absolutely enthuse people to get off their chairs and do things. And you sit there and look at the simple things of just standing up and down out of your armchair. It's ridiculous, some of the things that actually can make a difference. And these girls have empirical evidence to show that it works. It's not just airy-fairy, this might happen or this could happen. They actually do really good data around what happens, how the programs work, the impact that it has on the people that go through those programs and the broader impact on the community. So it's not as if it's just, this could work. It actually does work. So I fully support the motion.
Councillor Gibson.
Thank you. I rise to support the motion, and I thank Councillor McMahon for bringing it to the table. I think the results of the 15 years that Active Launceston has been around speak for themselves. And I think from my perspective, what it is it's an invitation for the state government to again partner with us. It's not a criticism, it's an opportunity for us to demonstrate how successful this project has been over the last 15 years and how with matching funding, the new wonderful Minister for Sport and Rec has an opportunity to further expand the work that project has undertaken. I note as well the officer comments, and I want to further expand on those comments to say that it was also the Examiner newspaper in 2008 that was a partner with the project. I, at the time, was working at the Examiner. It was one of the very few projects that we actually funded in cash to be able to support. It was the Department of Rural Health at the University of Tasmania, and of course that work was, highly desirous to support and be part of. But the Examiner newspaper, through the stories that they promoted for over 3 years, there were stories that were branded in the paper, told the story of how people who perhaps ordinarily would never engage in formal gyms or sport and recreation had the opportunity to be part of some of those activities that Councillor Mackenzie has referenced. So I think here is an opportunity for us to write to a fresh minister in the space to say that this is something that delivers so many benefits to our community. Here is an opportunity for a small investment for you to consider getting great bang for your buck and further expanding the health, the wellbeing and mental health outcomes that come from this great project.
Councillor Dr. Raze.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I fully support the motion to reinstate funding for active Launceston program. I have to revisit the situation as we had recently workshop on the importance of physical well-being and the role of lifestyle. But we have to realize that the growing epidemic of mental health disorder in the community. It's a recent survey, it said 20%, but I believe it's more than that. But we have to realize in the 90s, there were only 6% of Australians suffering from mental health disorders. So there has been massive increase, like threefold increase within 30 years. Quite often us people, let's start with young generation, if students come to us, what's the most stressful things in your life? Well, it's finances. And you look at these young kids, studying, and you say, well, we have massive debt, we can't afford buying a house. Then you look at our young parents, they struggle to combine work with finances, paying high mortgages, and all these contribute to their stresses. Look at our pensioners struggling with cost of living. Look at our self-funded retiree, they don't know whether they're funding. And therefore, it's important to realize the Australian ethos is about caring for each other and support each other. And this is like a small, a small proportion to contribute to helping not just physical well-being, but also mental well-being. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do rise to support this motion too. I do remember in 2008 when the Active Healthy Australia grant was put together, and the university was one of the main drivers behind that. So it's been interesting to watch this evolve over time. Perhaps a little disappointing to see it devolve into where we are now. Perhaps there's also room there to re-engage with the university and indeed with the Examiner as part of this process. It would be most interesting to see what the dialogue will be from the state government, given what everyone has said today about the state government's commitment to a healthy Tasmania. It would seem obvious that that this program should be revitalised. In some ways, winter in Tasmania is not the greatest time for getting outdoors, but it does make sense that a yearly program does lend itself to becoming part of our routine and therefore maintaining something that you're not stopping and starting. So it makes sense in that respect, and it also makes sense in terms of community care. It's something we don't perhaps mention often enough, and I thank Dr. George Raze for mentioning it there, where it is showing that compassion to our community. Sometimes we get caught in the administrative language in terms of procuring or acquitting various projects, and we know that it's all about care, but we forget to sometimes mention that. And so in this case, what we're talking about is showing that compassion for people, showing that compassion to our community, bringing them together in a situation that's not costing them money, but is giving them that opportunity to share their experiences and to improve upon their situation, whatever that may be. So, in that respect, I take the words that the mover of the motion has said in regards to the improvement in mental health that this type of program can bring. And I certainly encourage any opportunity that we have as a council to show that compassion for our community. Recommend it to the table. Thank you.
Councillor McMahon to close. Oh, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and thank you to Councillor McMahon for bringing this motion. Like everyone else has said, I'm right to support it. Been involved in the mental health area of youth suicide since 2009 with Sally's Ride, where we've raised over $350,000 to be spent in our local community in that time. And as Councillor Dawkins said, it is very difficult to quantify when you're trying to prevent something, because how do you prove that it actually works? I think the motion has every chance of succeeding around this table, and to help it succeed when it gets to the government, I note that we're writing to the Premier, who of course is the Health and Mental Health Minister, and it is perhaps better that it comes out of that bucket than trying to get it out of the sport and rec bucket, because that may have other demands placed upon it. So from that point of view, I would ensure that we do write to the Minister, the Premier, as the Mental Health Minister in our letter, because it is probably a mental health issue as much as a physical activity issue. But anyway, I'm sure we'll all vote to support this, and thank you for bringing the motion again.
Right, putting it to the table. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. Motion is carried. 13. Agenda item 13.1, Cultural Advisory Committee meeting. The recommendation is that the council receives the report from the City of Launceston Cultural Advisory Committee, and the meeting was held on the 7th of June. Do I have somebody to move? Thank you, Councillor Walker. Seconder, Councillor Britton. Councillor Walker as the mover.
Thank you. In the report there, you will see a number of actions and topics that have been discussed at the Cultural Advisory meeting. We also acknowledged the work and commitment of Kim Seagram, who would be known to all, I'm sure, who has chosen to no longer be a part of that committee. So just to thank her for the work that she's done in that space and continues to do in the community. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Britton, nothing further. Councillor Gibson.
Thanks very much. Obviously, I'd also like to stand and support the work that for 2 years Kim Seagram did on the committee. Councillor Dawkins and myself, as the inaugural council representatives, did a plethora of work with those committee members. It wasn't really what they signed up for, but we wrote the action plan and had a good number of conversations. The good thing about Kim Seagram being there was that it expanded our idea of what culture was by really touching on the City of Gastronomy designation. So I'm hopeful that we can find a way into the future to ensure that that connection and that broadening of the topic culture is defined by diverse representation around the table, because key, I think, to us really achieving the most from our cultural committee, our cultural strategy, but also our City of Launceston, City of Gastronomy designation is going to be those things working in partnership. So thanks, Councillor Walker, for referencing Kim. She really did a powerhouse of work together with those other inaugural committee members to get the show on the way.
Any other speakers? Councillor Walker to the close. Putting it to a vote. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. Motion is carried. Agenda item 14.1, the Heritage Advisory Committee Representative Ratification. The recommendation is that council endorse the appointment of Jess Council as the new community representative member of the Heritage Advisory Committee. Do I have somebody to move? Councillor Kai? A seconder? Councillor Pentridge? Councillor Kai, would you like to speak?
The scheduled Heritage Advisory Committee meeting for June was postponed because of a huge number of member cancellations. It will be rescheduled to reconvene at a later date. Recently, architect Jeff Council was appointed to the Heritage Advisory Committee, and he will be a welcome addition around the table. Thanks must go to retiring member Les Pence for the expertise he has contributed during the past 4 years. Another recent farewell was made to Fiona Ransom, Council Heritage Officer, whose architectural and heritage knowledge, together with her wonderful leadership, was highly valued by the committee. 22 years of service to the council is noteworthy, and on behalf of the committee, I wish her the best in her future career at the Tasmania Heritage Council. Thank you.
Councillor Pentridge is the seconder. Any other speakers? Councillor Kai to close. Okay, putting it to the vote. So the recommendation is to appoint Jeff Council. That is all those in favour. The motion is carried. Agenda item 15, Infrastructure and Asset Network. 15.1, Concessional Entry to the Council's Waste Disposal Facility. The recommendation is that Council, in respect to Clause 4E of the Concessional Entry to Council Waste Disposal Facility Policy, approves the participating charitable organisations and their recommended concessional entry values for the 23-24 financial year, as listed in the publicly available agenda. Okay. No declared interests? Just double checking. Okay. Putting it to the vote. All those in favour? Oh, I've got to move it first. Sorry. Okay. Councillor Dawkins. Second. Councillor McKenzie. Councillor Dawkins.
Thank you. This is a program that we continue to run for our charitable organisations. I know it's an important program for those organisations because, of course, they're looking for any opportunity to be able to reduce their bottom line, and Council is also looking for every opportunity to be able to support charities or for-purpose businesses within the community. There was a process, an application process that had some confusion. We were ironing out some of those issues, but the names listed there, it's totalling around just over $40,000 in support, concessional support to the charitable community. And I noted there that the motion, the native animal disposal motion, is included in the value, but has a different set of attributions around it. So it's not exactly the same as the others in that list. So I know from the perspective of a charity, it's incredibly important to receive this support from Council, and I think they would be thankful for the ongoing nature of this contribution.
Councillor McKenzie as the seconder.
Yeah, I do, and I hope everybody had a chance to read the actual attachment because it gives really good explanation as to why we've actually done what we've done. So I commend the officers for the work that we do here, and I think it's important to note that each time we do this, it's all about actually reducing the amount of landfill that's contributed by these donors, by these organisations. So there's an element of, yes, we ask for it, but we're also expecting to improve. So I think that's a really important part of what we do. I think it's important that we support the organisations that do that are on this list because they do fantastic work within our community. But that concept of waste management is still very front and centre in what we do, and very good explanations in the comments column in relation to all the assets. So I really commend the work that's been done by our officers on this.
Putting it to the table, starting with Councillor Palmer.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Michael and his team for everything they've done. Councillor McMahon and I sat down with Michael and his team recently and went through the whole list. And as you can see, the support for our wonderful community is very large and varied, with the City Mission having secured a proposed value of just over $21,000. And I can say they received 3 ticks, which is the maximum ticks with an excellent outcome with no recyclables going to landfill. So that's outstanding. And I just recommend that we all pass this with flying colours. There's so many good different organisations on there. as I say, large and varied, and I just commend this for recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson?
Thanks. I rise to also add my support to this. And I want to say, in standing to support it, gee, this has come a long way in terms of the way that we have refined this to be something that seeks to reduce the amount of waste going to landfill year on year. Now applications need to come with a detailed waste management plan, and as you heard Councillor Mackenzie say, the mathematics of it needs to see a reduction year on year, because the hope would be eventually, as we continue to innovate with regard to additional streams of waste being able to be turned into additional things, that the amount going to landfill will reduce. It's been an educative process over the years, working with the organisations, and as Councillor Palmer has mentioned, there's such a diversity of organisations that are supported, and I'm always really proud that this is again another of the things that this council does to support community at the grassroots. You heard the largest being the City Mission, but also look at, you know, something like Grow Waverley that we know is making a real impact in that particular part of the community. So all of them, whether it's the largest or the smallest, are really appreciated by the organisations that receive the grant, the subsidy, and want to, again, as others have done, reiterate the support for our officers who have taken those organisations on a journey. In many cases, it started with people putting literally pen to paper, seeking to get their assessment across the line. And the idea of a waste reduction plan was certainly something that was very foreign to many of the applicants. And now that we've got to the stage that it's part of their business and part of the way that they work, I think that's in no small way due to the great work of our organisation.
Councillor Walker?
Thank you, Chair. Just a question to begin with, if I could, through you, Acting Mayor. And I, having been previously on this committee myself, I do understand how that reduction process works, and it is to encourage people or organisations to deliver less waste over time. But consequently, we also have, this is coming in under budget. So I just wanted to know, is that because we feel as though the incentive to, or the reduction in the incentive is working, or are there less organisations applying, if that makes sense? What are the reasons for the reduction?
Officer Michael?
Okay, I can speak to that in some regard. We had a couple of positive results where some of the organisations that previously did apply for a concession actually had found more commercial sponsorship. So they actually came in and said to us when we did chase up with them to say, why didn't you apply this time? And their response was, well, we have this sponsorship and we don't really require it, so it's better off to go somewhere else. As far as being undersubscribed, we certainly do get the message out there as widely as we possibly can and try and target others. We've had maybe 3 other new organisations this year, so we'll continue to try to get them on board as we go.
Thank you.
I'll just speak briefly to the motion. Yeah, certainly having been on that committee, it is rewarding to see that the way that it's structured encourages that production of less waste. Of course, you can see some of the big ticket items on that list. Some of our community service organisations who do, a plethora of work in housing and in social welfare and areas like that. And so that becomes a more problematic area, I suppose, in terms of that reduction. It depends for them. The more work they do, I suppose, the more they're likely to encounter having rubbish either sort of delivered to their doorstep or indeed as a product of the work that they do. So there's definitely still some big challenges there. For example, City Mission, essentially half of the concessions this year. And of course they are a major collector of donated goods. And I imagine a large amount of their concession comes from goods donated that really aren't suitable for what they do anymore. So there's areas like that where we have to work in conjunction with these service providers who are bearing the brunt of that part of the community, I suppose. But nonetheless, all in all, it is great to see, and it's great to see that even these smaller organisations have been assessed as having a minimum amount, I suppose you like, that perhaps there was some confusion about how they could apply, but it does sort of guarantee that they are still left on the list and able to access the service. Thank you, Chair.
Acting Deputy Mayor to close? Nothing further? Okay, putting it to a vote. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Agenda item 16, Organisational Services Network. 16.1, the lease of the Lilydale Courthouse. Don't have any public speakers to Lilydale. Okay, so the recommendation is that council by absolute majority, pursuant of section 178 of the Local Government Act, approve or at least consider leasing part of an area of the land situated at 1949 Main Road, Lilydale, known as the Old Lilydale Courthouse, to the Upper Piper Arts and Craft Co-op, Inc. Do I have somebody to move the motion? Councillor Gibson, a seconder. Councillor Palmer. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you. This is a great news story for Lilydale. There's some wonderful things happening in Lilydale, and no doubt it'll make Councillor Palmer, who appears to be the self-appointed mayor of Lilydale, very happy. But indeed, the way that we are continuing to work in the Lilydale community is to be applauded. And I think what this does is reaffirms the great work that this small community organisation, the work that they're doing, and the value that their small membership has and what they bring to members of the community in Lilydale. So I want to thank Michelle for her work in really formalising this in line with our strategy. I note that, it could be said that this kind of provision of service in Lilydale is unique in terms of the arts space. There's a lot of groups that would love something like this in Launceston. There's a lot of need. So really want to suggest that all councillors support this lease as presented.
Councillor Palmer as the seconder.
I'll only rise to support fully what Councillor Gibson has just said. Thank you very much.
Would anybody else like to speak to the item? Yeah, Councillor Walker.
Just briefly, only because this building, the old courthouse in Lilydale, recently I saw a photo of it, probably from 100 years ago, and as it was, as a courthouse. And it's probably had some modifications since then, but nonetheless, it's an integral part of Lilydale's built heritage, and it is a council building. To see it return to its former glory one day would be a great thing, but at the same time, it's in good condition and it's well used and utilised by the community. So it should be. Thank you.
No further speakers? Councillor Gibson to close. Okay, putting it to a vote. All those in favour? Is all councillors present? Motion is carried. 16.2, statutory estimates for the budget. The recommendation is to consider the adoption of the council's statutory estimates for the financial year ending 30th of June 2024. This one is once again by absolute majority. Do I have somebody to move? Councillor Mackenzie. Seconder, Councillor Dawkins. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. Just really rise to, I think we've been through a process where we had a draft budget put to us a month or two ago. We went out to public consultation. We had a couple of responses in relation to that public consultation, which has been responded to in a previous agenda. We're now here with the final product. There have been some amendments to the budget that have occurred from our original draft that went out for public comment, some up, some down, but overall I think we ended up in a better position, fundamentally from the back of some really good work in relation to our depreciation. I acknowledge that the rates are only gone up 4.5% this year. Probably confounded a little bit more by the fact that our waste levies have gone up to deal with the state government levies and various things like that. So it actually probably comes across slightly bigger than 4.5 at our actual rate increase across the board, and that won't be exact for every house. It's a broad cross-section, so some will be up a little bit and some will be down a little bit on that 4.5% across the spectrum of the various residential and other types of zones that we have in and around Launceston. I think the pleasing aspect of it is we come back into a surplus, I think a little ahead of our long-term plan, which is great, so well done to the people. I appreciate some of that's come about. We've probably cut our cloth accordingly. We've certainly had some rate increase through, I guess, growth in large part within the community and some other bits and pieces. I also don't want to underscore the fact that we are, as an organisation, running a little bit low in regards to our employment levels, which I know we're budgeting to have them back online, and I hope that we do get that back because that impacts on, the culture and the delivery of service in and around our community. But I commend the work that's been done by the officers, the explanations they've given to us as councillors in regards to the deliberations we need to making decisions about what's best for our city. Now, we'll find, as we always do during the year, some things will go not according to plan and we'll go over budget, and we'll need to deal with those. That some things will go under budget and we'll need to manage that. And if there are any things that go outside of the budget framework altogether, they'll be things that we'll discuss during the year. But year in, year out, we run pretty tight towards what our budget says that we're going to do. And it's a really good guide for us as an organisation to work our way through. So I commend the budget to the table.
Acting Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, of course, this is the next step after workshopping the budget and seeking feedback from community. And of course, as Councillor Mackenzie has suggested, there will be further opportunities through the year to amend the budget as is required, which of course we're entitled and prepared to do. It's a really important, obviously it's the most important document that we present to the community. It is a statement of our values, but it's also a statement that we are the preeminent council in this area at a time where I think we need to really show our colours to our extended communities, because we don't know what's going to happen over the next 12 months. There may be forced amalgamations. We need to position ourselves as a solid, dependable council who understands fiscal management. And I think this budget does this for us today. The first modest surplus since 2018. It's an incredibly important time to be able to show that to our community. Now, what we also show them is what we're able to do with that around 130 or exceeding $130 million. We have a list here of the capital works programs, the Alexandra Suspension Bridge Stage 2, the roads reconstruction program, the City Park play space, which we all know is absolutely in need of a refurbishment. There's sporting facilities, community facilities. There are decorations for Christmas, amenities upgrades, a huge list, an ongoing list of infrastructure upgrades which we are going to be able to participate in, conclude in this financial year. So I thank the department, their ongoing support for this community through their exceptional work as balancers of budgets, and commend it to the table.
Putting it to the table, Councillor Harris.
Oops, thank you. Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. Just looking at the list of capital works, or perhaps before that, I might just make comment on the 4.5% increase. It is, to my knowledge, the lowest of any local council that has announced their rate so far in the state. I think the Huon Council at 12% shows that some councils are starting to struggle in this particular environment, and as Councillor Dawkins said, the larger council has managed its finances well, and we are a well-run council from a financial point of view. I also just want to make a few comments about the capital works program that's coming up. The addition of a new pump track, we look forward to that. It was something that Councillor Daking in the last council was always very keen on, and I'm sure... Oh, it's right behind me. No, Councillor Gibson bought it, but Councillor Daking was most keen while Councillor Gibson bought the motion. It is something that I too look forward to seeing, along with the the YMCA upgrade at Kings Meadows. And probably the other one that people will be most happy to hear is that the Christmas tree and decorations will be in fact replaced for this year, and there is money in the budget to do that. So many things are in there. Unfortunately, not everyone gets what they want, but it is something that shows that council is listening to its community, and I commend this budget amendment or this budget to the rest of the council. Thank you.
Any other speakers to the budget? Yep, Councillor Walker.
Thank you, and thank you to council officers' work in this area. So I'm just getting back to where I was. I suppose I had a question to begin with in regards to the surplus and the separation, I suppose, of capital grants and the $4.5 million contribution to the Tamar Estuary River Health Action Plan. Why is that kept separate from either capital or operational considerations?
CFO Williams.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Walker. So when we look at our underlying surplus, which as a couple of councillors have said, we're forecasting to be an underlying surplus for the first time in several years, we're looking at recurrent revenues and expenditure. So capital grants that we receive, they are typically one-off by nature. So you get the grant to build something in particular. The TERHAP contribution, while it's running over a couple of years, we consider it to be abnormal expenditure. It's over a course of 3 years, so it's not going to be in the annual budget every single year. So that's why they're treated separately.
And another question, if I may. Thank you, Chair. And considering abnormal sort of costs and capital expenditure, although no decision has been made in regards to the Albert Hall, it's nonetheless forecast that we may want to make additional contributions to that capital works. Where in the budget, and I suppose it goes to the question that was asked today without notice from the community and understandable concern, where do we envisage that additional funds can or will be made available? Would it be from cash reserves, or would it be likely to be from existing the alternation of existing expenditure?
Look, to be honest, it's possibly a combination of the two. What we'll do, as we do every single year when we get towards the end of the financial year, we review the capital budget and look at what works might be carried forward. Some projects may have a reduction in budget, some projects may not continue. They'll all come to council in due course, obviously. So there may be some additional funding available there. But we've also got the cash reserves to be able to do it as well if we needed to fund it fully out of there.
Thank you. Speak to the item. Thank you, Chair. And as I said, I do thank the work that the council officers have done in this regard for the Launceston Council to be operating in surplus with a potential rate rise below the CPI, even though we are also witnessing a reduction at the moment in inflationary numbers for the 12 months to May, coming in now at only about 5.6%. We still compare favourably in that regard. So that's encouraging news. As Councillor Dawkins listed, those capital works that are there in the report give people an idea of some of the expenditure that council will be undertaking, work that does relate to previous councils and councillors' requests, including Councillor Gibson's interest in improvements to the skate park. These are things that certainly the community should be really heartened by, to see that we're now in a position to move forward on some of these big ticket items. And I commend the report to the table.
Councillor McKenzie to close. Oh, Councillor Pentridge.
Look, overall, this is probably a question, and if I could read it. Why, as a matter of policy, is council considering this road network development? I'm referring to South Prospect Development, road network, 500,000, when no other developers receive this benefit. So can someone explain why we're putting $500,000 into a private development And what benefits? Why isn't this a policy? Will this policy apply to other developments or other developers? And what benefit does the community get for the money that we're putting into it?
Sure. CEO.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So we have previously answered this question to all councillors, and obviously I just pulled up the email that we sent, which was in February this year. But effectively what the council's role is to facilitate urban growth. So it's been identified through the Northern Regional Land Use Strategy that there's areas for priority investigation as residential growth areas. So it's the council's role as planning authority to be able to unlock those areas so that we are able to receive further residential growth and commercial growth in Launceston. So in terms of the benefit the community receives, it's obviously through that additional residents, additional rates and additional livability. But in doing that also, we're wanting to be able to open up the recreational opportunities in the public reserve that are available to the community through Cape Reed. And so that's a large part of what the funding that the community is putting into this particular urban growth area is to unlock. And obviously we've been working on this for quite a number of years, so it's not a new initiative the council has been focused on, but one which we'll hopefully see realised this year. So.
Thank you for that. But there's been two major developments in that facility, and I know for a fact that both the developers, one of them that's involved with South Prospect, had to contribute significantly to roadworks and to other things on Kingsmeadows Connector. So it just seems a bit unfair on behalf of just generally when I mean, I don't know that we should be a whole heap of small developments are equivalent to one large development. So here we seem to be making a distinction between a major development, which I'm totally supportive of, but at the same time, why should it be given more assistance than the multiple small developments that have to fund all their own projects?
Well, I think that, Councillor Pentridge, that this will become a bit of an assessment process, that in this particular subdivision, they're seeing that unlocks the use of public land through Cape Reed, and that if there are those sorts of opportunities, then it will show itself through other developments, that if it's purely in a residential zone perhaps, or if it's got that additional benefit as to what it brings to the communities. I think what the CEO was saying, but a good question. Yeah.
I will just like to conclusively say the council's not putting any of its money into the private development. The council's interest is in the public realm and the connections to that and the opening up of the public reserve. There's the developers, as every other developer does, is responsible for paying the costs associated with their own development. And so that's something that we need to be very clear on.
Sorry, road network, that's quite clear there. South Prospect development, roads network, so we are putting into the roads, aren't we, the 500,000?
I think it's just that the road part that unlocks the public space.
Okay.
Yeah, not the whole connector through the, yeah, I believe. Councillor Gibson?
Thanks very much. I rise to support today this first in a suite of 6 initiatives which bring, I guess, the work of our council over the last 12 months to fruition through these suite of documents that need to be approved today. I really want to thank our finance team who do so much work. I think also the way that we've refined the system to allow our community to be involved in the consultation during the formation of the budget and thus the striking of the rate has really been refined over the years. And whilst we only have 1 or 2 or 3 people who formally were involved in the consultation phase this year, as others have mentioned, what some of the capital works projects reflect the community's desires and interest over the course of the year or years previously to see a variety of projects come to fruition. And whilst some are listed on paper, is included in the project list, there are many others. That's just a snapshot. So they should be taken as an example of some of the projects that are to be initiated. I support what fellow councillors have said in their remarks prior to me, but I also want to acknowledge that a rate increase is just that, an increase. And it will be interesting to see how our increase is described, which adjectives and which describing words are used, particularly when we know that some other local government areas around the state, some other large cities around the state, are facing increases on 10%. Very significant. So I think in terms of the way that we have stuck to our long-term financial plan, the way that we have supported our community through COVID, the way that we have been financially sensible with regard to our budgeting reflects our moderate increase, but yet I acknowledge that for some, any increase at this time is significant. And Acting Mayor, I say that because there are a variety of measures which our council afford to members of the public who are having financial difficulty meeting the needs of payments. And I want to just mention that whilst we are increasing the rates, we acknowledge that for some, any increase is significant and want to, I guess, just put that to the table as well. Want to thank and acknowledge the way that our staff have worked across the organisation to ensure that, and I don't say this flippantly, but the way that there is something in today's budget for every member of our community. We know around the table with our own interests and our own flavours that we all have different projects. We all have different pockets of the community that we want to see go ahead. And I think what today reflects is a mix of all of that. And matched with the annual plan in the sixth item in the suite, we see a variety of works being undertaken in conjunction with the long-term financial plan. And I really want to say how proud I am of our organisation that we've stuck to that long-term financial plan, and thank our finance team for all of their work getting to this culmination today.
No further speakers? Councillor Mackenzie to close.
Thank you, and thanks for all the contributions made by everybody. I mean, I've stood around this table for 11 or so years and listened to members of the community, and people have criticised us about being financially inept and all sorts of different things over the years, and how we get run over by lots of different players. But I see in this budget something where we've actually shown good financial leadership. To come in at a 4.5% against a 6.9% inflation rate in a time where it's very, very tough and people are talking about energy increases and various other bits and pieces that are going on around the countryside, coming in significantly lower than every council I've seen the rates on. I hope we don't read rate hike in the paper tomorrow, because the reality of it is actually a really good, sensible, well-managed budget increase. We have a diversity of things we do in and around the city. We fund a QV mag, we fund a York Park, we fund a swimming pool, we fund many social activities, princess theatres, all sorts of different things. But we do something for everybody in this community. So it's actually a really challenging job that we do. We serve rural, we serve residential, we serve commercial. There's so many different elements to what we do. The process that have been put down, and Nathan, you and your forebears have done a great job in refining the way that we put the budgets together, which make it understandable, I think, for all the elected representatives on how we do what we do. Do we get everything right? The answer is probably no. But the reality of it is we get most things right. And if you sit back and think only back 3 or 4 years where we pumped $8 or $9 million into our community to save them during COVID, which was much more than any other council in this state did, and yet we've managed to rebound back without really coming back and making our community suffer because we helped them then. They're helping us now because we got the growth that we've got. We've got a fantastic city which is growing. We're managing our resources well. We're managing our finances well. So I think this is a really good budget.
Perhaps snail might be more appropriate than slug. Okay, putting the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. 16.3, 23-24 fees and charges amendments. The recommendation is that council approves the changes made to the adopted fees and charges for 23-24 as listed in the agenda. Do I have somebody to move the motion? Councillor Gibson. A seconder? Councillor Harris. Councillor Gibson.
I think it's all clear.
Nice. Councillor Harris? Any speakers? Councillor Gibson to close? No? Okay, putting the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. Motion is carried. 16.4, Budget 23-24 Rating Framework. This one is also by absolute majority, and it is to consider the adoption of the rating framework for the financial year ending the 30th of June 2024. Do I have somebody to move? Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Seconder? Councillor Harris. Councillor Mackenzie.
Whilst I'd say this lacks a little bit less clarity than what we've just spoken about, the reality, this is the mechanism in which we now apply what we put into our budget, the 4.5% against the range of different classes of assets that we're actually rating against. So this is just a formulaic rate per dollar on particular areas of land that are assessed. So it's really just the mechanism we use to put that 4.5% into action.
Councillor Harris is the seconder. Any other speakers? Nothing further to close. Councillor Mackenzie? Okay, putting the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present. The motion is carried. 16.5, Rates and Charges Policy. The recommendation is that council, pursuant of section 86B of the Local Government Act, adopts the revised rates and charges. Do I have somebody to move? Councillor Mackenzie. Seconder, Councillor Harris. Councillor Mackenzie.
Again, these papers appended to it, we will show you the very minor amendments that have actually been made to that rating notice, which is just changing some percentages and tonnes that we are dealing with, and changing City Prom to Launceston Central Marketing Inc. And I think that's about it. So they're very minor changes to the rating policy.
Councillor Harris. Any other speakers? Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you. I think what this particular policy does, and indeed the framework before it, it shows that sometimes even when changes at the next level of government haven't been able to get through, which have obvious connection to our long-term financial plan and our own strategy, we need to consider that in the previous framework and indeed in the words of this particular policy. Sometimes things that have been promised or things that perhaps have been told to the sector that are going to come about and for whatever reason haven't been delivered upon or indeed are ruled out completely. We have to take that on. And so note the different categories, things like the rating of independent living units, for example, and others which are listed in the policy, in the framework and in the strategy, are all things which impact our council and our ongoing viability. So I think it's important to mention when you have the opportunity, when others have taken things like that off the table, we can always draw attention to them when we need to.
Any further speakers? Councillor Mackenzie to close. Okay, putting the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present. The motion is carried. 16.6, the City of Launceston Annual Plan, noting the amended change that was delivered to your tables at the start. The recommendation is to consider the adoption of the City of Launceston Annual Plan 23-24. Do we have somebody to move? Councillor Harris. Councillor Gibson to second. Councillor Harris.
As you might expect, this annual plan is in fact the annual plan for the next year about how council will in fact be spending the money. I do note the change to the executive summary, which perhaps just makes things a little clearer in that part of it. And yeah, other than that, it really is just the annual plan of how we go forward for the next 12 months. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson?
Thanks very much. I think these 7 strategic priority areas are a reflection of the diversity and the depth of what we're going to do. We note that not all of them are going to be completed in the next 12 months. Some will be initiated, or in some instances, work will continue that's been initiated from previous years. Of course, this isn't all the work. We know that that's the case. There'll be notices of motion, there'll be additional things that come up. But what I think this does do is talk to the extent of the work that this organisation undertakes. Again, there are so many things that are included in the annual plan, things that we all should be really proud of. They're accompanied obviously by the estimates. And I think, you know, there is some great work that is going to come to fruition in the next 12 months. Lots of things that we've been looking forward to, lots of things in some instances that we've been waiting for. And it feels to me like we have this incredible energy at the moment with some incredible human resource in our staff who are just so eager to continue delivering great things for our community. Some of them are mentioned in the opening summary and accompanying documentation in terms of the things that we'll do. But I think for all of us, we all resonate with some of the projects and deliverables that are referenced throughout the strategic plan. So I'm looking forward to being kept abreast of where those projects are at over the coming 12 months. I think that's a really good way for us to be able to, as we always do, show our community the work that we're undertaking through a formal reporting mechanism. But again, just want to reiterate the breadth and depth of those strategic priorities and the focus areas, and indeed the actions that are coming out of that for the 12 months ahead.
Any other speakers to the item? Councillor Mackenzie?
Yeah, thanks, and I endorse that. I mean, it's a good document, explains what we're doing, but I think the most important thing we need to look at is when we're looking at the measurement time, sometimes we're at 20% or 15%. Some of these plans actually don't just happen in 1 year. They actually are multi-year setups for various things. So I think if we get to something, we think we've only got 20%, might have been where we plan to do. So I'm hoping that within our measurement of our annual plan this year, we'll actually look at what we're actually intending to get done this year, not 100% of 100%. If it's 20% of 100%, then that's what we need to be able to explain through to ourselves.
Councillor Walker?
Yes, and you know, in some ways this can be seen as a aspirational document because some of these things are things that the council has expressed that we wish to do, and it can't all happen immediately. It can't all happen at the same time. There's steps and stages to be undertaken, but at the same time there are legacy items there, and you know there are certainly things that I have a personal interest. I'm sure there are things that each of these councillors here have a personal interest in. You know, one that I'm especially pleased about is that the Aboriginal Partnership Plan has been established. It is part of our annual plan. Other areas, when it comes to the greening of Launceston, a review of our open space strategy, a review, well, implementing our public arts strategy, but also looking into the implementation of the cultural strategy. They're all works in progress. You can see how that they overlap, they influence each other to some point. Everyone's had their challenges over the last few years, including Launceston Council, many organisations, companies and otherwise. I suppose this feels like a time to borrow somewhat from Councillor Gibson, saying that energy in the organisation, it feels like a time where we can start to take some significant steps forward in quite a few of these areas, notwithstanding the fact that that there are some areas where expert staff are needed in order to progress some of these things. So while there are those legacy items that feel as though they're taking time, they're also fermenting at the same time when it comes to the greening strategy, when it comes to the cultural strategy and things like that. They are fermenting within the organisation, and I do share the optimism that Councillor Gibson expresses, that it feels like we are at a time where many of these things could start to come to fruition because of the fact that they are interdependent, and similar to Councillor Mackenzie, that sometimes when you say that 20% of something is completed or 50%, it means that the organisation has also changed its focus, and therefore that's not necessarily a true representation. It might be in terms of the actual work that's being done, but in terms of the culture of the organisation, I think sometimes that shift becomes monumental, and it's probably something that can't be easily measured, but it is occurring, and that's an exciting time. Thank you, Chair.
Any further speakers? Councillor Harris to close.
I will just re-quote one of my boss's sayings, and that was, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And clearly Launceston does not plan to fail. As Councillor Gibson said, we have plans to help us succeed, and I look forward to these being implemented over the next 12 months. Thank you.
Putting the motion to the vote, all those in favour? These all councillors present. The motion is carried. 16.7, Local Government Association of Tasmania Annual General Meeting, 30th of June. The recommendation is that Council provide voting direction to the Council delegate for the items listed for decision at the Local Government Association of Tasmania Annual General Meeting on the 30th of June 2023. Do we have somebody to move? Councillor Gibson? Seconder? Councillor Harris? Councillor Gibson?
Thanks. I agree with everything that's listed here, and obviously provides you with the direction to vote tomorrow. But I want to also take this opportunity to really recognise the outstanding work of the President of the Local Government Association, Christina Homdale. She's done an incredible job over the last 4 years serving the organisation so well. She's been supported by a great Vice President in Mick Tucker from Break a Day. It's been, as we all know, a really challenging time in local government, and that doesn't look to settle anytime soon. But I really, on behalf of our council, there'll be an opportunity tomorrow, obviously, for the sector to recognise her. But I think, colleagues, you would all agree that Christina has done a mighty fine job. No matter whether we agree with everything that she or Legat have advocated for, nonetheless, she really has been visible. She's been very dedicated. She's been a wonderful source, particularly to new councillors. I know in smaller councils, they've gone to her for a lot of guidance and support. So as we're seeking voting directions for the annual general meeting, and her term will come to a conclusion at the end of that annual general meeting tomorrow, I'm sure you'd recognise Christina Homdale for her work and dedication.
Councillor Harris? Any further speakers? Anything further, Councillor Gibson, to close? No. Okay, putting the motion to the vote, all those in favour? That is all councillors present. Motion is carried. Okay, around a similar vein, we've got 16.8, Local Government Association of Tasmania General Meeting, 30th of June 2023. Now, the recommendation is that Council provide voting direction to Council's delegate for items listed for discussion at the Local Government Association of Tasmania General Meeting to be held on the 29th of June 2023. Do we have somebody to move? Is that a hand up, Councillor Pentridge, or is that just... To move? Councillor Harris? Seconder? Councillor Gibson? Councillor Harris?
Yes, this is just some, I guess, direction for the voting delegates for tomorrow's meeting in regard to certain items that are being put forward, whether they would be noted, confirmed, or in fact a couple of their motions, whether they are to be supported or not, one of which is that the state, which is worth noting, is the restricted covenants on use of land and property that the LGAT lobby, the state government urging legislative change to outlaw the creation of covenants which place restrictions on the use of land and property for public and social and affordable housing or tenants or occupants based on their source of income or social or financial circumstances. So I think that's a really important motion that we are supporting, and that is something that we as a council should be proud of. Similarly, there is other motions there which we are not supporting. I probably won't go through that one, but it's quite long in regard to council leave provisions, but we as a council did not support that particular motion that was put forward. So other than that, it's really just what's going to be put on the table for you tomorrow, I guess, in Hobart. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson is the seconder.
Thanks. I think the one that will create quite a deal of conversation tomorrow is the motion from the Huon Valley with regard to short stay accommodation. That LGAT convene an expert reference group from member councils to develop recommendations for the sector to consider what further data and support is required to assist local government in responding to the housing crisis, what changes are required to manage short stay accommodation contribution to housing availability, and what tools are available to encourage owners of unoccupied dwellings to make their properties available. I note our officer's comments, which I support also. Earlier this year, Council examined the impact of short stay accommodation on the Launceston rental market and resolved to explore the introduction of a differential rate for short stay accommodation, together with options to address the high number of vacant dwellings that exist within the city. So I think our support of it is consistent with our work in this area previously. We've obviously worked with LGAT on a range of previous motions to ensure that they're consistent with the direction that we're heading in. We're obviously seeing now other councils who are moving towards the differential rate model, but we're also seeing, if you believe the media, an increase in the number of vacant dwellings that exist in our own community. So I think what this motion would do, if it is supported, is ensure, as is the case with a number of other reference groups that are convened by LGAT, that will enable people to share information, enable smaller councils to receive advice and learnings from others, but also enable larger councils to understand what some of the impacts are in some of the smaller council areas, noting that this particular motion comes from Huon Valley. So I expect quite a vigorous conversation with regard to this tomorrow, not certainly with regard to the intent of the motion, but just with regard to what individual council areas are seeing in this space.
Just to clarify, Councillor Gibson, I believe that 12 short stay came from Launceston. I'm just going to get the CEO to confirm.
Yeah, so thanks, Acting Mayor. So what actually happened there? So it's an LGAT motion that was brought about by us actually liaising directly with LGAT on the back of the motion that we passed. Clarence also had a motion around it, which was why LGAT took the lead. So there's just an error in the agenda where Huon Valley's been listed there where it should say LGAT, and it was basically at our initiation. So just to be clear from the table as to what's happened there. So,
nevertheless, some valid points.
Yes, the work of us, as I say.
Further speakers? Councillor Walker?
Yeah, and it certainly is the issue of the moment for Tasmania, and probably the more relevant, most relevant motion that for Launceston that we have here. You know, we've seen a plethora of ideas about how to deal with this issue. We've seen a state government that has been reluctant to act on the issue, has said that, you know, councils should be acting if they feel it's relevant. But then we've seen councils also struggle to find ways that are appropriate to act, including a differential rate system. It's probably not the perfect solution either. So I will be interested to see that this gets supported, and indeed to see what the reference group can hopefully in a brief time come forward with in terms of solutions to that particular issue. It depends which way you look at the issue. It depends which side of economic reality you live on, I suppose. But nonetheless, what we've seen is a shortage of rental properties and therefore an astronomical increase in the cost of rental. And whenever there's a shortage of anything, the price will go up. It's not to say that there are necessarily too many Airbnbs, short stays, but there certainly is a shortage of rentals, especially in Launceston. So that's interesting. This is always the case that with these things, you find all sorts of particular motions that are brought forward, some supported, some not, some interesting, some curious, in terms of, restrictive covenants on the use of land and property to allow for public or social affordable housing not to be restricted on land. It's probably not such a big issue in Launceston. Nonetheless, we are supporting, and similar, the councillors' leave of absence provisions, not something that we've had a problem with previously, and not something that we are supporting. So it's always the wild and wonderful and wacky when it comes to the LGAT motions, and they're there for everyone to see, but especially supportive of Councillor Gibson's comments in regards to the short stay accommodation and what we can do as a council, noting what other councils in Tasmania are already doing.
Councillor Dr. Raze.
Oh, thank you very much. Also support Councillor Gibson's comments about short stay accommodation. And it's great to see our council thinking ahead about the impact of short stay in Launceston, because it has been a growing problem in most major cities, and we should learn from what happened. We heard about how in Melbourne, massive increase in short stay accommodation. Part of New York now, they call them ghost town because they have got more short stay than long stay. And as you know, people come and stay just for a few days and leave. And sometimes it's associated with some noise and for the neighborhood. And I think it's wise to see that we should continue to review the situation, the number of, the increase in number, but I'm thinking hopefully we can get the balance right between the short and long-term stay. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Councillor McKenzie?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I guess as long as we get the balance, we always seem to think about the people who are not being able to use the properties. Think about the people who own them as well. They actually have some rights that we need to make sure that whatever we do is done in a way where it's exercised. Whereas I know one council just went bang, we just increased the rates by 50% without actually having any conversation with the people who own the properties. And I think that's the wrong way about going about it. I'm not saying that's not the right outcome, but it's bringing those people along so we just don't slam dunk them overnight, because we don't know their financial circumstances, what's created the reasons for why they do what they do. So I think it's important that we pay respect to the people who actually own the properties in relation to any decision that comes up at Legat or here.
Councillor Harris to close.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, the short stay, of course, is a very interesting one. I did bring the original motion asking us to look into it, and you may recall that basically we said in Launceston we have 30,000 properties, 10,000 are owner-occupied, 10,000 are owner people paying them off, the other 10,000 are rentals, of which, again, from round figures without having them in front of me, I think about 8,000 were what we would know as Housing Tasmania or Communities Tasmania. The other 2,000 are the private rental market. So once we understood those figures, it helps you understand that if we have 50 new Airbnb, short stay, Airbnb type properties, it does generally will be affecting those 2,000 that are currently long-term rentals. I was interested, the Huon Valley, as I thought, as it was put in the motion, even though it wasn't that, my thought was that in the Huon Valley, if you had 50 Airbnbs, their local rental market may well only be 100. And so that is taking 50% out of it. And we know that is the case in the smaller communities like Coles Bay, that workers have nowhere to stay because all of the properties are now short stay accommodation rather than long-term rentals. So whilst we here in Launceston are somewhat less affected by it, and we will be, the situation will improve, and the only way to improve is to build more accommodation and housing. Accommodation, first of all, because hotels and stuff will directly compete with the existing short stay, and therefore as more people move into hotel rooms, the short stayers will find they have less business. And similarly, we need to build more housing because there is no other option other than to build more housing, because we do not have the same number of people living in each house that we did 20, 30 or 50 years ago. And that is in fact part of our issue. That is worldwide. It is not restricted to Launceston, Tasmania, Australia. It is worldwide that there is a housing shortfall and a homelessness crisis. So it will be very interesting to hear the conversation about that one. I hope you and and Councillor Gibson enjoy the day down there, and look forward to your report on that when it comes back in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Okay. Putting the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. Motion is carried. Okay. Agenda item 17. 17.1. The Launceston Flood Authority. Appointment of Director. We will note the amendment. I'll read it out. The recommendation is that Council, pursuant to clause 12.1 of the Launceston Flood Authority Rules 2020, reappoints Greg Priest to the Board of Directors for a further term of 4 years until the 5th of August 2027. That is the amend. The other two are as they were, I believe. So, putting that recommendation, do I have a mover? Acting Deputy Mayor? A seconder? Councillor Pentridge. Acting Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. This motion asks us to consider the reappointment of Greg Priest as Chair and member of the Board, and as the amendment mentioned, to the 5th of August 2027. There's a small remuneration which comes with this of $6,000, and I can see no issue with confirming this appointment today, and expect a vote from the table that will support that.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Mayor. As the seconder, Councillor Pentridge.
I've taken a few notes, and this is one of the subjects I've been quite interested in, or more to the point. And I'd like to read out something from the Flood Authority, which our CEO signed and other people. It says here, purpose, to perform independent high-level monitoring of strategic employees to minimise flood impact of Launceston flood-prone areas, including the ongoing dredging of the upper reaches of the Tamar and North West River. Now, there's been a reluctance, and I'm not aware that anything has been done for the last 5 years. So I haven't got a problem with the gentleman who's with Mr. Priest, if that's appropriate. I have got a problem with the whole board. I don't think they're achieving anything. They're just wasting community money. What are we actually achieving? Can someone show me what have they worked on in relationship to the last paragraph, including the ongoing dredging? That was part of their responsibility. We seem to have forgotten it. And my understanding from what's been thrown at me all the time is that it's the state government's responsibility. Now, I'd like to give all my colleagues here a bit more credit. And so what am I being told? That the state government, based in Hobart, cares about our river? I'd like to see someone in Launceston care about our river, instead of constantly being told why it's someone else's problem. I would have thought the river is our problem and we should do something to at least address it, or start working towards addressing it in the short term or long term.
CEO.
So I'd like to take that question on notice to provide a considered response, because, and I'd also like to see what you're referring to there, so perhaps we can get that to be able to respond to, because it's certainly not true that the Launceston City Council and other stakeholders are abrogating any responsibility to the work that's happening in terms of improving the quality of the estuary. We are working as part of the Tamar Estuary Management Task Force, equal to the state government. So I believe what you're saying is not correct, but I'm certainly able to provide a more considered response in terms of being able to draw reference to other material and put it in terms of a coherent response to the next council meeting, perhaps, Mayor, Acting Mayor.
Well, well, please don't waste too much of your time. I'm well aware that we're doing a lot of work in cleaning the quality of the water. But this document here states dredging. Now, my understanding of dredging means taking the material that's very visual on low tides. And so I'm looking forward to when you present something, what are we actually doing about the dredging?
Yeah, we'll put that
specifically interested in that. I accept that we're doing a lot of work on improving the quality of the water, but we're not doing much about the visual impact of the river itself. So.
We'll take that on notice and we'll have that prepared. Now, if we could just be mindful that this motion, this recommendation is based around the appointment of Mr. Preece. I have another speaker, Councillor Gibson.
Thanks, Chair. I rise to support the reappointment of Director Greg Preece. I think Mr. Preece has done a great job. This is a pretty simple motion, really. It seeks to simply reappoint him as a director and note that he will be the chair for the ensuing term. I also note that, you know, a variety of different factors are at play with regard to flood levy management. Certain documents are requested and certain documents are provided, which provide some answers to some of the questions that have been raised previous today. We're operating in a changing environment, in an environment where, you know, different things need to be considered. And importantly, EPA approvals need to be at the fore for all matters pertaining to levy and river management. Such an important thing.
Any other speakers? A question? Councillor Kai?
I was just wondering, is Greg Preece a person independent of government?
Yes.
He is? But,
yeah. Okay. He's a former employee of council.
He's an individual, so he's on several different groups and boards, no doubt, but he's not a member of the government.
Answer your question.
Thank you.
No further speakers? Deputy Mayor to close.
And there's actually plenty I could say right now, but I think the most appropriate thing would just be to close this debate, wait for the technical reports from the CEO to be able to further the specific aspects of this conversation that require some in-depth research and understanding, and we'll just put the motion to the table.
Okay, putting it to a vote. All those in favour? That is 11 for, 1... Or those against? 1 against. Councillor Pentridge is against? Okay, the motion is carried. Okay, agenda item 18. Moving into closed council, the recommendation is that council moves into closed session to consider the following matters: confirmation of minutes, Albert Hall renewal project. Do I have somebody to move? We move in. Okay. Councillor Palmer, a second to Councillor Britton. I think we need to speak to it. Putting it to a vote. All those in favour of moving to closed session? That is all councillors present into closed session. Okay, having moved out of closed session, we now look to our recommendation to move that the council in closed session spoke on the table 18.1, 18.2, which is the confirmation of minutes and the Albert Hall renewal project. Can I have someone to move the recommendation that that table is relevant to what we just spoke? Okay, Councillor Harris. Councillor Palmer as a seconder. Now, we can have a speaker to this one if anybody wants to speak to it, but it is in closed council. Yep. Speaking only to the table. Yeah. Bringing up the table. We won't vote on it until we can see the table, just in case. Okay, so that's the table. So we're moved. Councillor Harris. Councillor Palmer was the seconder. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. Motion is carried. Agenda item 19, meeting closure. Next council meeting will be at 1 p.m. on the 13th of July here in the council chambers, 18 to 28 St John Street. Yeah,